Warning, you are about to hear a discussion that may make you a little bit uncomfortable, but I say good. It will be real, perhaps raw, but it's today's reality surrounding the landscape. What's going on with missing children in the United States? Headlines, trials surrounding true crime we'll touch upon, exploitation in America. But you know what? It's escalating, growing, warriors, but not on Jennifer Coffindaffer's watch. She says enough, and she is a warrior. Let me tell you a little bit about Jen. She's returning to the Warriors, and we're so thankful and honored she's taking the time. So I think you're probably a little bit familiar with Jen already, but she's a retired FBI special agent with over 28 years of distinguished service in federal law enforcement. And she has specialized throughout her career in gang, narcotics, organized crime, electronic surveillance, and counterintelligence. Oh, my head is spinning. Investigations. Her leadership was instrumental in disrupting major criminal enterprises. And she also is doing a lot of expert witness work today. She's done it and she's doing a lot of it today. And she has a podcast, a great podcast, Break the Case with Jen Coffindaffer. She leverages all of her extensive background, investigative experience to delve into true crime cases, exploding, in my opinion, every single day, offering insights. And she has expert guests, all of her relationships, retired agents, profilers, psychologists, witness and victims. And the podcast covers high profile serial killings. Oh my goodness, mass murders, missing persons, especially our missing kids, child predators, human traffickers, and fraudsters, providing a fact-based and honest perspective on true crime. You can see Jen frequently on News Nation as a law and justice contributor. I urge all of you to please follow her on X, the best X going, at Coffindaffer. FBI, we'll have everything in the body of the video. And also Break the Case with Jen Coffindaffer. Twice a week episodes are happening, and she's on every platform known to us, which is Apple, Spotify, YouTube. I'm just going to get to it because we'll be here all day reading Jen's credits. Welcome, Jen Coffindaffer, back to the Warriors.
Thank you so much for having me. Wow, what an introduction. Again, it is great to be here. I love your audience. I love what you're doing, and you speak for victims, and so do I.
Thank you, Jen. And I'm going to say it again. Your background, your experience, your work. I mean, thank you for your service to our country. I really mean that. It's incredible. And you look so good while you're doing it. So I'll just throw that in. But I want to get a little serious. We talk a lot, you and me, about missing kids. And May 25th, just last week, it is designated May 25th every year as the National Missing Children's Day. In the United States, it was started in 1983, President Reagan, around the Aton Pates case here in New York, which I remember well. I remember being a senior in high school, and it was very strange to me, for some reason, that a child just went missing. I guess we didn't talk about a lot of that in 1979. That's when that case happened. So let me ask you, how has let's start with the nature of crimes against children, evolved over your FBI career, especially because we have digital platforms, and now, I'm afraid to even say it, we're on the cusp, no, it's here, of AI, artificial intelligence. Tell us your thoughts on that.
Well, I can tell you it's gone really so digital now. I mean, before, for a predator to get to a child, they had to go to their playground, or they had to somehow find them in a physical sense. Not anymore. They can be in their bedroom with them and not be in their bedroom with them, because kids are constantly on their TVs. I can't say TV. I can't believe I even said that right in this day and age, but they're on their devices, and they're gaming, and they're actually intersecting with people they don't know. I mean, the chat bots on their phones. I mean, kids have phones now when they're like 7, 8, 9 years old, a lot of times, and it's terrible. So what I've seen is essentially, it's not as physical initially, and they are pulled in so many different ways than ever before.
Just easy access is the bottom line. I mean, you've got the predator in your home with you. Let me ask you, what do you think are the biggest investigative failures in recent high-profile child trafficking or exploitation cases, because you know the name I'm going to say, because it really haunts me, is Sebastian Rogers. I think about him. I think on a daily basis. I don't. There's so many missing kids. For some reason, he sticks in my mind all the time.
That Sebastian Rogers case, for me, it's the most important case that I report on out of all the cases involving missing children. It's unfathomable in this day and age when videos, video recordings, cameras were all over this neighborhood. This was a high-end neighborhood with all of the video that was available, that no one can find this child. It doesn't make any sense. And, you know, when you talk about failures, I think the biggest problem is in any case, and Summer Wells is another one that to me mimics the Sebastian Rogers case, is you have to go to these missing children cases and treat them exactly like a homicide from the word go. And that's hard for officers to do because they come on scene and the parent or parents are typically frantic. They're saying they've lost their child. They're telling you a story. You're immediately deploying people to check houses that are nearby to begin search efforts. You get the dogs in. And unfortunately, you typically have a lot of people in the house where the child went missing and was last seen. I think you have evidence and other distortions that are either not looked at or possibly hurt because so many people are in there, and it's just not being treated as a homicide. And you have to treat these cases like homicides first, and then work your way backwards to the missing child.
I mean, that seems like such a simple solution, doesn't it? To start that way and work backwards. Whatever happened with that? Remember there was that video of him, like we don't know it was him, but there was like a murky figure or something like that caught somewhere. Was there any, did we ever learn anything more about that?
Let me talk about that. It's known famously in the missing community as the lights video. And essentially there were two lights. It's very confusing on the time frame because the neighbor that actually took that recording, you know, their cameras recorded it. It essentially, his clock didn't work on his recording device. But they've been able to sort of walk back because there were trash trucks seen on that video, and they know they come between 5 and 5:06, I think, in the morning, something like that. And so they've walked back, right? You can just walk it back, the time. And there's different reporting on it, but at 3 a.m. could possibly be the approximate time. But then if you listen to law enforcement is saying that these two lights that appear to be separated from each other, and one goes in one way and the other one follows and then one comes back, law enforcement is saying those are actually headlights. And that the reason it's distorted and becomes so distorted is because people only have a portion of this video, Lynn, and they say it's also taken from an angle that doesn't show the true picture. I'm just telling you what law enforcement says. I personally have started relooking at the Sebastian Rogers case like it's a cold case, you know, and just started from the beginning and looking through the footage of what the police have said, what have the parents said. And when you look at that, the police are insistent that that is unrelated. They're insistent. And just in my experience, typically the police aren't just going to bold-faced lie about something like that. And in fact, if they thought it was at 3 a.m. and they saw something, they in fact would be asking people, listen, you need to look back, consider everything, any noise you might have heard at that time, something you thought was off, a dog barking, anything, please let us know. Because it might corroborate something truly happening at that time. But Lynn, they are in the sand, and the parents, they actually brought the parents in to review the video. And the parents gave a detailed account saying law enforcement showed them the long version. the actual video, not what's out in social media. And further, showed it not only for an extended period of time, but showed them how the angle is making it look like something it's not. And the parents came out and said that. But since then, the parents, I think, particularly Seth Rogers, Sebastian Rogers' biological father, now Lynn, is saying he doesn't know what to believe. I think he's lost some of his trust in law enforcement because now we are going on, we're well over a year. He disappeared February 25th of last year, and he's lost heart. And it's really a frustrating case. If we go with what law enforcement says, the lights mean nothing. If you go with what your common sense says when you watch that video, it would mean something.
I mean, I'm no investigator, but how do we know? Maybe it was, headlights, a car. Maybe he was picked up and he got in that car. Like we don't know. They're so adamant though. When they're that adamant though, it makes me like question things, right? Because I always think, again, I'm not an investigator, but a missing child, right? Like you just keep unleashing anything you can find about that with the hopes of you're going to actually find that child alive. So this just bothers me that he's not on a Ring doorbell or something, or a dog wasn't barking if he left the house on his own accord or something like that. But I'm glad you're following up on that, because I'm going to keep asking you about Sebastian Rogers until we have some sort of closure or answers. What signs do you think, Jen, that parents and family members or communities, they miss when predators are exploiting and targeting kids? Because I've had a lot of people say to me, oh, I saw something at the airport, but I didn't know then what I think. Or I saw something at the park. And I have a lot of that. And that really bothers me, Jen. Like, so what do you think people should be looking for? What are they missing? Or what are they not looking for?
It's just awareness. Talk about a digital distraction. Everyone is on their cell phone.
Yeah.
You just walk into any restaurant and watch the majority of people. They're not interacting with each other. They're not even speaking with one another. They are literally constantly on their cell phone. And it's tempting, right? You're there, you're waiting on your meal, the conversation's dragging for whatever reason, and then you want to look, and then all of a sudden you've been on it 15 minutes and not even realized it. But it's terrible to watch that, and that's what happens with everything. So now you have parents that bring their child to the playground, and they're locked into their phone. They're not watching what's going on. And so I think so many people miss those signs more than ever before because of the cell phone distraction. I mean, it really is as simple as that in that regard. They're too distracted.
So it's basically really, let's get down to it. It's just awareness. If you're in a playground, put the phones down for a little bit. You're wherever you are in public, you put the phones down. We have to be so aware, because I also have a lot of people coming forth telling me, actually, when they were kids and things like that, how like a stranger came up, their mother was like right there leaning into like the meat counter in a supermarket or something. And like, I just had somebody tell me this, and the little sister was right there holding on to, the cart thing. And he was there too, the bigger brother, a year older, and just a strange man walked up and walked off right as the mother was like leaning in. Luckily, the mother ran right away because he said something. He was a little kid. And they found the man at the door exiting, holding the hand. But the little girl didn't scream or anything. She just was going off with him. But they found her. And I've heard similar stories. And the kids, I think we have to also do a better job. I know there's been a lot of things about this, with kids and educating them. It just seems like it's so increased. We know, come help me find my puppy. Do you want candy? Oh, can I give you a ride? But something's missing, Jen, because there's too many kids getting attacked, missing. What would you suggest? Or just, we have to have more awareness, I guess, is the bottom line, right?
Well, I think awareness is important, but the other thing is engagement. I think now kids and parents aren't as engaged. Typically, the mother is working and the father is working. When they come home, they're exhausted. It's 6 o'clock at night. Then they have to make, dinner. So who's watching the kids? Sometimes it's a babysitter. Sometimes it's another sibling. Nobody really knows what's going on. And that's when connections are made on their devices and they feel that attention. They feel like somebody really cares about them. They're gaming with them. You know what I started doing recently? I have a 16-year-old, and he loves to game, even at the age of 16. And I said, okay, I'm going to learn one of these games. I'm actually terrible at it, but now I just say, I walk in there and I say, we're gonna
That's
play
good.
baseball. That's the one, the MLB, right? We're gonna play baseball, and he kills me. And but I try really hard, and I'm getting way better. But my point is that engagement, and I think so often in all the stories we hear, really, of young girls that end up meeting people online and then meeting them somewhere unbeknownst to their parents, they're really looking for that engagement.
Yes.
So I think it's twofold.
Yeah, they're looking for attention. We know this. They're looking and they think a stranger, we know from different studies that kids within 24 hours fold with a stranger online. We know that the last study was 9 to 17-year-olds. Within 24 hours, 40% of them, Jen, will then attempt to go out and meet that person, that stranger, in real time. And that study is also a couple of years old already. That's a frightening, frightening thing. A stranger, and then they're going, whether they get on a train, a bus, they get in somebody's car. This is what's happening. Um, can you walk us through a real case? I don't want you to reveal, I know you wouldn't, any confidentiality, something that is keeping you up at night. I saw on your X account about those two little twin, I think they were twins or brothers and sisters, the little Jack and Lily Sullivan or something. And then I think it was yesterday, like all disturbed about that. But tell us, is there anything that you want to share with us that really keeps you up at night?
I'm going to be honest, that Sebastian Rogers case, and I
Me
think
too.
this is the reason Sebastian more than any other. Uh, I've really put in as much time and effort as I can. No, not that I can. I want to do more. But I'm frustrated. I am frustrated because some of my connections that I'm really trying to get movement and get answers. And I thought we were down a really good road and it was going to end well, ended up at a dead end. And I am feeling, obviously it's not my child, but I am feeling that dead end feeling when it comes to law enforcement and to truly wondering what's really being done. And, just the engagement with Dog the Bounty Hunter, as an example, and at night investigations, they do have a hotline. They send me stuff all the time about different leads they're getting because they're following up on the stuff that law enforcement either can't or won't. And then when they vet it out and it's something that seems to rise to a level law enforcement should know, then they filter it to them. They run it by me. And there's a lot coming in on that. But it's all dead end stuff. It just really is. And I think another reason that case bothers me is because I know about, and many of us do, the home environment. The CPS being involved, 5 different reports, the stepfather admitting that on 2 different occasions he beat him with a belt. That's what we know about. And I know he says one time. Listen, been around the block a few times. If a drug dealer tells you he's sold one time, that could mean hundreds of times. And if they say hundreds of times, that could be thousands of times. Everyone minimizes their behavior. And I also listened to a horrible phone call with the stepfather talking about really his disdain for Sebastian. And just things like, let me give you an example. And remember, Sebastian Rogers is on the spectrum.
Right.
Even though he's so high functioning, super smart, but it means socially and emotionally, suffering in some ways. We know that, and this has been admitted by the parents, that they had another young man in the house that when Sebastian was younger, violated Sebastian Rogers. We know that they kept Sebastian Rogers as a 15-year-old. He's 16 now, turned in December. in diapers, basically 24/7, other than when he was with his biological father, instead of working to, change that. There's just so much about that case that just eats me alive, because I feel sick to know what he suffered at home and what he may be suffering now. And I feel helpless. And even like I said, with trying to go down some law enforcement avenues that I have, thankfully, this one is not working. It's a dead end.
Well, we're going to pray for Sebastian, and we're going to pray that we're going to get to the bottom of it at some point. At some point, we have to. There has to be some sort of something about Sebastian. You just don't disappear in thin air. I wanted to ask you, what do you want to say about how deep is the connection between organized crime, trafficking rings? I'll also say, political or corporate protection in child exploitation networks, because this is something I'm coming up against a lot lately.
Well, there's so many different avenues, right? There's the child pornography aspect. That is a huge industry in and of itself. It's a huge moneymaker, the dark web, all that's happening in that venue, right? The digital venue, if you will. Then you have the cases where actually people are abducted, or to me, what's just exploding, and we're going to continue to hear about, are all the children that cross that border, either with parents, without parents, some friend was supposed to look out for them, and that they are being trafficked. That is going to continue to explode. And there's no network like that isn't organized. So when we talk about organized, I don't necessarily mean mafia. I'm talking about whether it's cartel organized or whether it's organized within a child porn ring in and of itself. They are very organized, and there's a hierarchy. There's a lot of money to be made, and it's a business.
It's a business, which is, it's very crass. But when people ask me, I always say, Jen, there's a lot of money to be made. A lot, the most amount of money. And if there's no accountability, right, keep going, keep making more money. But I just find it incredible that we know from all those kids over the border. It was just announced the other day, Biden administration, there were a lot of reports, over 70-something thousand of people reporting sex trafficking of these children or some illegal kind of activity, labor trafficking. Nobody ever followed up. 70-something thousand. I think it was 73,000 reported. So it's always more than whatever they tell us. But that's a lot of people reporting. They had actual facts about things. 73, and it was ignored. Nobody looked into it. Nobody questioned it. Nobody did anything. And it came and it went the other day. It was announced. I think I was the only one I heard talking about it. And then we're off to the races for something else. And I'm like, wow. And I keep thinking about, where are these kids today? And then our kids, our American kids, listening, because they all have the devices, hearing this, seeing these headlines. It must be really frightening for kids today to just be, and I'm talking even our teenagers, hearing about all these things, seeing these kind of things. Let me ask you, you touched a little bit upon it. What role, if any, do intelligence agencies play, maybe directly or indirectly, in obstructing or aiding investigations into child trafficking or missing kids, if you want to weigh in on that?
Unfortunately, I don't think they play a big enough role. There's so many other areas and arenas that they're involved in, that I think the intelligence side of things could be used so much more effectively. But it's just not a major priority, unfortunately. Just imagine if there were squads within the FBI that all they focused on was the dark web and getting to the bottom of that. And I can tell you that's just not the case, because there's so many other priorities. Terrorism is the number one priority, and it's going to always be the number one priority. And then political corruption is a big priority. I will say sex trafficking is up there now. I think it was number 3 last I checked. So it's definitely, making headway. But, as long as we continue to be behind with staying ahead of things like AI, as you and I talked about off camera, and using the digital resources to really focus on how these networks are working, it's not going to work. I wanted to bring up something, Lynn, because I know we're talking to me kind of abstractly. And for me, my mind, I always like to hone in on a case. I just want to touch on the case of the Venezuelan national. This made huge headlines all around the world, actually, and became huge political fodder, where you had, politicians flying down to Venezuela, making sure this individual wasn't in the bad jail. And he was pulled over. I saw the reports. Yeah. I actually posted a lot of them on my Twitter because so many people were like, "Oh, Jennifer, you don't care about civil rights. You don't care about due process." Of course I care about civil rights and due process. Of course I wish that it would have been handled more technically correct. Listen, this guy was trafficking, had a bunch of girls in the car, women in the car, young ladies in that car, and was trafficking them. I think, and so did the officer, and from everything I read, based on my experience, that's exactly what trafficking looked like. He had no explanation for what he was doing with all these people in this makeshift van that had been converted. And it's mind-boggling to me that we're not just grateful for what happened. And I would want to take that guy and I would say, listen, you want to come back in this country? I want to hear all about who you were driving around. I want to hear about what networks you're in, because that guy's a bad guy and he was involved in a lot. And there'd be a lot of quid pro quo I would want going on with him.
Now, Jen, is that the guy that had the expired license and then they let him go? Is it that same guy who then this is the guy, I think, and then we kicked him out. And then he's got this, he assaulted somebody, I believe, in Venezuela. He's got some kind of record. I think we're talking about the same thing. The one all the politicians have been, they were flying down and wasting our taxpayer dollars on this. And now they're not really talking about that anymore. But that's another program, Jen, that, they fight for their PR moment. Nobody goes along with that. I'm telling you, the American public, right? Fighting for these people, even if they were trafficking other illegals, nobody's buying this yet. The mindset of our own, we're constituents, right? And they treat that, to me, is the most disturbing of all that's going on. Fighting for all. We just have, I'm digressing a little bit, a woman here who's been forever in New York City. And she put out yesterday, she wants all of us to pay for the dentistry of all of these illegal people. We want people to come here legally, right? When I know and work with American moms, lots of them of color, working so hard to put food on the table, who can't even afford, a lot of dentistry. I don't understand this mindset, but like I said, a different program. It is out of control a little bit. Let me ask you, I want to switch over to being that more on the heels of this national missing children's, what about the foster care? Because that whole thing has to be retooled, blown up, something done. Are we ever, because I feel like, and you pointed out crime, terrorism, I really feel like the kids, sex trafficking, it falls to the bottom of the barrel. That's the way I feel. Are we ever going to be able to retool that foster care system? Because I can't tell you, Jen, every person, they don't even know each other. They could be my age now. Kids, every age, has reported to me they've been re-victimized, re-trafficked in the foster care system. What are we going to do about that?
It is such a mess. Right now, Harmony Montgomery, she was the little girl that was murdered by her father because she fell through the cracks for about 2.5 years. Nobody knew she was even dead. Yet the social services was paying checks for her, welfare checks, not even realizing she wasn't alive, and she was school age. It's really pathetic, and there is a movement and a grassroots movement that's starting to try to get social services to be looked at from a federal standpoint. In other words, they need to be gone through, those cases looked at. But, this is the thing, Lynn. These social workers, they get paid rock bottom. I used to date a social worker, and he got paid nothing and worked terrible hours, the things he had to see. He was so fed up with his job after about a year because there's no support, there's no financial support, your caseload's gigantic. And as you said, why are our children, why is our future the rock bottom of the barrel in terms of money and funding and support? It's got to change.
It has to, but it's up to us to keep talking about it, keep making the public aware, keep just creating noise about this. Let's finish up with, if you were back in the Bureau today with unrestricted resources, what would your first priority be in protecting kids?
Oh, and protecting kids, my number one priority would be child pornography. And this is why. It crosses the lines into sex trafficking. In other words, many people who are sex trafficked, they are exploited pornographically. And so because that crosses, if we can get a handle on child pornography, those rings, I think we can really start making more changes. The other thing is I would really focus in on those instances, like I named earlier, where you have a particular person that's pulled over or that you've identified as a coyote or otherwise trafficking individuals. That person should not just be put in jail or sent back to their country. Let's ferret out what that network is. Who's his boss? Then who's that boss's boss? We need to work on getting informants in there, and we need to start infiltrating those sex trafficking rings. And at the very key to that are the child porn rings, because you can infiltrate those from behind a screen, just like we're doing.
And many are trying. I know some really good people working on this, but obviously not enough. Well, Jen Coffindaffer, I could speak to you all day, so promise me you're going to return. Always such great information, really boots on the ground. You're so sane, Jen. It's like common sense what we have to do. I want to thank you again for all of your service to our country. I really mean that, because this is exactly what we need. Actually, we could use you running the FBI, frankly. I don't know if you'd ever do it, but no, you probably don't want to do it. But I maintain, Jen, that if women ran everything, we'd be in better positions across the globe. This is just what I think. But listen, I want all of our warriors to share this information, share this video, follow Jen on X, Coffindaffer FBI. Also, break the case with Jen Coffindaffer. I'll have all your information in the body of the video. And just thanks, Jen, and promise me I can get you back in the next few weeks, because we got a lot more to talk about.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks to your audience.
Thanks, Jen. We'll talk again soon.